Arguably, the much more interesting of these configurations has to do with the server core installation option. And I say interesting with a nod towards the fact that the actual configuration, at least at first, can be just a bit more difficult. If you've ever installed Windows, which I assume you have, either in the desktop or server OS editions, you're familiar with the steps that are necessary in taking that immediately installed copy of the OS and bringing it up into full production and on the network with all the usual configs that are then necessary. These are things like changing the display resolution, setting the time, changing the network configurations, and adding it to the domain. But this whole process gets quite a bit more difficult when you don't actually have any of those graphical user interfaces there to assist you as you're going through those initial configs. Right over here, I have my copy of this server. This is server 1, where if I hit Control-Alt-Delete right here, I can punch in my administrator password and then log into the machine. And as you can see, there really isn't all that much to see here. It's really just a legacy command prompt. We can, once this machine is configured, be able to go through much of the then later management with those tools that exist over there on our Windows 10 desktop. These are things like the RSAT tools and other PowerShell commands. But we need to get this machine bootstrapped up into the network to be able to interface then with that remote management console that we have. Accomplishing those tasks here in Server Core is going to require some command line effort here at the console. And in fact, let's actually just step back for just a minute from this machine and think in a very general sense about the different kinds of tasks that are necessary to completely bootstrap this machine onto the rest of the network. Let me bring up here a copy of a PowerPoint slide where we can talk about just those tasks that for any server or any desktop really, how you get that machine then connected up to the rest of your resources. Here we have a couple of things we have to do. We need to set, for example, our display resolution. We need to set our date and also the time on that machine. We need to configure its IP addressing and also its computer name. Any machine coming straight out of the install will have DHCP as its IP addressing mechanism and also a randomized computer name. But we need to get these changed so that we know exactly where to go for this computer we've just built. We also need to configure its licensing and potentially also activate those licenses. We may need to set up any Windows firewall configurations, so setting up exceptions there in the firewall. We also need to join the Active Directory domain so that we can then work with that machine through our other domain joined machines. And then lastly, the task that we talked about back on our last clip, we need to then install whatever roles and features that will bring this machine into full functionality. All of these items here, because we haven't yet bootstrapped this machine into the rest of the network, are things that we're probably going to need to do, at least initially, without further automations, right there on the console of this computer. So let me go ahead and minimize this and come back here to our machine. This is, again, server 1. And let's take a look at some of the things that we need to go through in order to complete these tasks. I want to show you first one little cheat that Microsoft has provided to take this appliance, as it were, and to much more quickly bring it into full production. That tool is SConfig. SConfig brings up, as you can see here, a server configuration menu that provides items for changing its domain or workgroup membership, for changing its computer name, adding a local administrator, configuring remote management, and then doing some of the other items that you're used to thinking of in setting up this machine. We can change our network settings and our date and time, and also to work with Windows activation as well. And so just working through these different menus here allows us to, for example, identify that we have a single physical network adapter plugged into this machine and that it has what is here an automatic private IP address that's been provided for it because there are no DHCP services here in this very introductory environment we're working with. And I could go through and make changes here, actually doing all the configurations you're used to working with and getting this machine up and on the network.